Welcome. My name is William Messacar. I am a master model railroader in the 4th Division of the Pacific Northwest region of the National Model Railroad Association. I want to welcome all of you to the virtual layout tour we'll have presented today by members of the NMRA. We would encourage you to find out about the NMRA and join in order to participate in these virtual tours. We have other virtual clinics and other activities for the National Model Railroad Association that we think you'll find a big help to your modeling, and you'll get to meet model railroaders just like you. So welcome to our tour, and I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, and I want to thank Greg for being able to go through the slides. I'll tell him when to switch slides, and he'll switch the slides for us then, okay? Anyway, I feel kind of intimidated being in the midst of so many good model railroaders here. I don't consider myself to be much of a model railroader. I've actually been interested in model railroads, I guess, since I was 8 or 9 years old, all my entire life. But I never have actually had a operating railroad until we moved here to Shelton about 15 years ago. And I got interested in 1 to 20 scale, large scale stuff. And I had a bunch of stuff outside in the garden, but it didn't work very well. And I could never get it to run well. And it got frustrating. So I finally gave that up and sold most of that and went to the stuff that I have right now. So you want to put the first slide on there, Greg? Okay, and I guess the next one. Okay, so my current layout is O scale. The gauge is ON30. I use all Bachmann equipment, engines and cars and so forth. The era is somewhere around the 1930s, 1940s and so forth. I'm not very specific about that because I probably have a lot of stuff that doesn't actually fit in with the era. You probably notice that as we go through the slides and everything. The room is out in the garage. It's about a 20 by 20 foot space. And the layout size itself is 17 feet by about 4 feet wide with a U shape at each end. And I probably made every mistake that you can possibly make. Like I said, this is the first time I really tried to do a layout. So initially, I built the bench work in 3 sections, and I had it back against the wall. And I found out that I couldn't reach the back of the railroad without messing up everything that was in front. So I went ahead and shortened the sides a little bit, and I put furniture pads underneath all the legs. And I found out that with 2 people, I could move this thing out 4 feet from the wall. So I now have access to the back of the layout as well as the front. My control is DCC. I use NCE. And the reason I did that was because I don't have any real electrical background or anything. And I found out that this is by far the simplest way to run a layout. So that's what I use. This is kind of an overall picture of what my railroad looks like. You can see the foreground here. That section sticks out about 8 feet and is probably 5 feet wide. The long section in the back is, I think, 17 feet long and probably 4 to 4.5 feet wide. And the one on the far end sticks out 6 feet and is about 4.5 feet wide. And I have various scenes, so forth on it. And this is another general view of this railroad itself. I have plywood, a 1/2 inch plywood down. And then on top of that, I use 2-inch foam. And then the track is laid on top of Woodland Scenic's foam roadbed and glued down with caulk. As far as locomotives and so forth, I have 4 locomotives on the railroad. I have this Bachmann 260 Mogul, which runs really nicely. It's a nice, smooth running layout railroad, and it has a sound included in it. And It's really a nice operating engine. Okay, this is engine number 9. I have 3 porters on my railroad. All of the porters have keep alives in them, and they all have sound. I actually bought this engine from somebody on the internet, and it was already set up with keep alive and sound, and it runs really well. And this is my newest engine. It also has keep alive and sound in it. Runs extremely well, very smoothly. Once again, I had a friend from down here in Olympia who did the conversion for me. And this is engine number 7. Once again, an engine I bought off the internet from somebody back east, and it was set up with keep alive and sound and runs really well. Okay, as far as rolling stock, all of my rolling stock is Bachmann. I have about maybe 25 or 30 freight cars on the railroad, a combination of box cars and a few gondolas, a few hopper cars, some flat cars, and about 4 cabooses, and a couple of maintenance of way cars that I have. This is a general view of the railroad train in the background there. The road in the foreground is made out of sanded grout. I laid it down and sanded it, and it turned out very nice. It looks almost like a dirt road, which was the effect that I was trying to get on it. The scenery is actually styrofoam piled up and then carved down to make mountains and so forth out of it. And then I coat the scenery with the styrofoam with plaster. And once that's done, I put on rock molds from Woodland Scenics molds that I have, fill them full of plaster and just kind of slap them onto the sides of the mountains with grout again to hold them in place. And then once they're held in place, I go ahead and paint them with 3 or 4 different colors of paint, kind of dribbling it down over the rocks and so forth. And then the final step is I coat everything in 50-50 glue, white glue. And then I just kind of sprinkle on Woodland Scenics foam to get the scenery down. Okay, these are a couple of 18-foot box cars that I like really well. They run mostly on the upper portion of the railroad. The building in the background is a scratch-built warehouse, shows a little bit of the scenery that I have. And I have 2 passenger cars on the railroad. They're 18-foot passenger cars. They fit on a Bachmann frame, and the superstructure is removable. So I have the passengers inside the cars, and I like them really well because they fit in with the size of my railroad. Originally, I was running large full-scale passenger cars, and running them behind a Porter engine just didn't look right. So I replaced them with these small cars, and now they fit in really well and they look nice. You can see some of the rock work that I've done there. Once again, it's made out of plaster and coated with 3 or 4 different layers of paint covered in glue, and then foam sprinkled over the top of it. This is on the waterfront. The building in the background there is a Woodland Scenics pre-built building, which I thought filled in pretty well with the area that I was trying to model. Show some of the wharf that I built. The wharf is built out of coffee stir sticks. The track work on my railroad is code 83 Atmos HO track. And I had thought about using the micro engineering ON30 track, but at the time I could not get enough of it and I couldn't get any switches. So rather than have part of it HO and part of it ON30, I just decided to go strictly with the HO track. And even though it's not quite in scale, I think it works out very well. These slides are a little bit out of order, so they're gonna skip around. This is the upper portion of my railroad on the branch line. On the right is the Sally Joe mine. This is the upper terminal of my railroad. I set the railroad up so that I have continuous running as well as some switching And this is an area that does a lot of switching up on the upper portion of my railroad. I have quite a few trucks. This is George. He doesn't like anything very modern, so he still drives this old beat up truck. It still runs pretty well. And this is Henry coming down from the mine in the upper level. Occasionally there's rock fall along this place, and so he's got this rock in front of him. He doesn't know exactly what to do about it, but one of these days he'll probably figure it out. This truck is a modified truck. It had a box on the back of it. I took the box off and replaced it with this flatbed and filled it full of coal. And this is a small loading dock that I built. Once again, a nice O-scale truck. I bought a lot of these trucks from this narrow gauge modeling company. I think I paid about $16 a piece for them, which I thought was very reasonable. Another truck, and it's probably in the 1930s, I guess. It fits in with my railroad. Once again, you can see some of the road and some of the scenery. I found this bulldozer on the internet, and I kind of fell in love with it. I thought it worked out very nice, so I bought it. And I didn't really have a place to put it, so I put it over here by the sawmill. And it's just been used in the past. It's no longer used for hauling logs and so forth through the woods. I painted it with a spray can, just kind of browns and grays and so forth, until I got to the point that I liked it, and I kind of left it that way. Okay. And this is another interesting thing that I found on the internet. I don't even know exactly what it is. I know that it was used back in the early 1900s for moving logs through the woods. It's kind of a relic right now. It's not operational. And once again, I painted it by spray cans with rust and so forth, browns and blacks and so forth, until I get it to the point where I think it looks reasonably weathered, and that's what it is. This is the engine house. Once again, it's totally scratch built out of foam core and balsa wood. I designed it myself. Another picture of the engine house. I think it turned out pretty nice. I'm not a great modeler, so on mine, you don't want to look at them real closely because you'll see a lot of mistakes and a lot of problems and so forth. Like I said, I'm not a real great modeler, but I like the appearance of it, and I think it looks pretty good in this spot. And along with the engine facility, this is a coal loading dock. Like I said, my engines are small, so coal is loaded by hand. Once again, this was scratch built. I saw this on another railroad that I operated on occasionally, and I decided I'd build a similar type thing on my railroad. So once again, scratch built. And the water tower is a bantam kit, which fits in very nicely with the small size of my railroad and my engines. The building next to it is scratch built out of paper. It has cardboard covered in various types of paper siding and so forth, and it's the pump house. And this is just another view of that same area on the railroad. This is the upper portion on the logging branch of my railroad. You can see there's a turntable there, and there's a water tank. This water tank is scratch built. The turntable is a Kitwood model kit. It's a gallows type turntable. It operates, but not very well. I've not been able to figure out exactly what the problem with it is. I had a friend actually build it for me because it was beyond my ability to put it together. So a friend built that. And we have not yet been able to figure out exactly what the problems with it is, but it's manually, it's totally operated on manual. Another picture of the turntable, farm in the background. These trees I bought from the internet. They are, I'm not sure exactly how they are built, but I like them. They look pretty nice. They look like pine trees, so I'm pretty happy with them all. Another picture of the engine facility. We caught Mr. Goober here with his pants down in the outhouse. We shouldn't have done that, but he's probably embarrassed with that, but that's okay. The main passenger terminal on my railroad is an Atlas pre-built station. I've built this same station in HO several times and had it setting on shelves. I never had it on an operating railroad before, but when I found this pre-built, I figured it was way beyond my ability to build something like that. So I went ahead and bought it and used it, which I like very well. This is a miner's cabin up on the upper portion of the railroad, close to the mine. It's scratch built. I bought one of these kits from Bantam and I built it. And then I took the same plans and I built 4 more miners' cabins based on that same plan, scratch built. They're built out of foam core with balsa wood and coffee stir sticks as a siding, and usually some type of tar paper or some other type of thing for roofing material on them. Just another view of the upper area of the railroad. Once again, all the buildings in this view are scratch built. The trees I bought from Amazon. I think they were less than $1 a piece. When I got them, they were kind of ugly looking because they're bright green and had an ugly stuff up on the top of them and so forth. And I didn't like them. So I went ahead and sprayed them down really hard with 2 different colors of green spray paint. I coated them with hairspray and sprinkled them with Woodland Scenics foam, and they turned out pretty nice. And I'm very happy with them now. This is a warehouse down in the lower section of the railroad. It's an Atlas kit that I assembled, and I can thank my son for the background. He took all these pictures and took out all the background stuff from the garage and so forth and replaced it with this nice blue cloud sky and clouds. This is another shot of the upper portion by the Sally Joe mine. Once again, all the buildings in this scene are scratch built. The bushes in the foreground are made from a type of mesh that I spray painted dark green, and then I sprayed it with hairspray and covered it in foam and put it on the railroad. This is down in the lower section of the railroad. The building in the foreground is actually it's kind of like a storage facility, a warehouse. And the building next to it is a Woodland Scenics build-up building. Another warehouse on the railroad. These boxes and so forth were things that I had left over from my large scale stuff, but I thought they looked pretty good, so I continued to use them. Okay, the dock, the wharf had to have a lighthouse, and I wasn't able to build a lighthouse by myself, so I went around looking. I found this lighthouse at Hobby Lobby, and I brought it home and I put it on the railroad, and it was so ugly to believe it. So I built the building around the base of it, the lighthouse features a house on the base of it, and painted it and did some more modifying on it, and it turned out nice, and now it looks pretty nice at this spot on the railroad. So anyway, this is a kit built loading dock that I built. The dock itself is all scratch built out of balsa wood. The superstructure is from a derrick car, Bachmann derrick car that I took apart, and the crane is part of that car as well. The barge down below is a kit that I built, and the water is plexiglass painted blue. Once again, this ship came from Hobby Lobby. I found it. I cut the bottom of it off so that it would fit flat on the surface of the water. And there's a man on it. You can see the man is O scale, and I think it works out very well as far as an O-scale fishing boat. Once again, this is the logging area of my railroad. Couple of camp buildings there, a derrick car and a donkey engine there for moving the logs around. The logs are actually pencils that I found on the internet that I just cut the tip off, and they have a nice wood grain for them, and they look perfectly like logs. So another view of the logging area. This is another view of the Sally Joe mine. This is another mine down at the other end of the railroad. The mine head is off to the right there. You can just barely see it. The track running to the hopper, I still need to put some braces underneath it there, but I wanted to try to get the height and everything correct so that it would fit. And I just need to add those braces yet. One thing I haven't done. Once again, the Sally Joe mine, showing some of the scenery in that area. My wife said we had to have a farm on the railroad. So I found this barn on the internet and placed it on the upper portion of the railroad and built a fence around it and put the trees and so forth. The car that you see right in the front is a combination cattle car that I built out of a kit. And the blacksmith shop is scratch built, and the red building in the background is also scratch built. Another shot of the barn. The blacksmith car is a kit. Another shot of the barn. And another shot of the barn. I got carried away with the barn here, I guess. So there's another shot of the barn. This tree in the foreground, if you look at that tree, that's one of those ugly trees I got off the internet that I said were really terrible looking when I first got them. But once again, I sprayed them with brown or green spray paint, coated them in hairspray, and doused them with a heavy dose of Woodland Scenic's fine foam. And I think they turned out pretty nice. This is down on the lower portion of the railroad, the sawmill area. The sawmill is a kit that I modified quite a bit. I had to make some changes on it to get it to fit into this particular area. Another view of the sawmill. It has a partially detailed interior. I'm not good at putting some of these metal pieces together, so my interior on it is not really that well done, but at least you can see some of the interior portions of it, and it makes it look better than just an empty building. Another view of the sawmill. And these logs in the front are the ones that I was telling you about. They're actually pencils, and I just cut the tip off of the end of the pencil, and they make perfect logs. And another picture of the sawmill. Another close-up picture of the sawmill, a log getting ready to go through the saw at the top. When COVID first hit last year, we were all kind of stuck at home and everything. So I needed something to do. So I built this diorama. This is called Perkins Produce Diorama. Actually, I was inspired to do this in 1972. I built this same building in HO scale, and I still have it on my desk in my computer room. It's moved, I don't know, 50 different times or so through the years and so forth, and it's still in pretty good shape. So I decided I would build the same thing in O scale, but I had to modify it quite a bit to make it an O scale. So this is what it turned out to be, an O scale. And the building here on the left-hand side is just like a storage building, also scratch built. Another shot of Perkins Produce. along with some nice pine trees. And another shot of Perkins Produce. This building in the foreground, I tried to duplicate the peeling paint with rubber cement. It turned out fairly well, I think. Like I said, I'm not an expert modeler by any means, but I think it turned out pretty well. Another diorama that I built, we watch a lot of Andy Griffith on TV, and this is kind of inspired by Andy Griffith. I had these two gas pumps sitting in a storage bin just of extra parts, and I pulled them out, and I figured that they would make a nice starting point. So I built this based upon Andy Griffith's show, Goober's Garage. The building is scratch built. And here's another picture of Goober's Garage. The tow truck is a 1927 truck painted yellow, and then I sprayed it with rust color to make it look like it was old and used. And once it got to a certain point, I just kind of left it that way, and that's the way it is. And this is the backyard of Goober's, all the junk and so forth that he's collected over the years, broken down cars and parts and so forth. Most of these came from the internet, and I merely had to paint them, usually with just a spray paint, black and browns and rust colors and so forth. And that's basically the end of the presentation. So anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I live in just north of Shelton, about 10 miles north of Shelton. Open to having anybody come out and visit that would like to come visit. I'm pretty far away from anybody, so I don't have a lot of modelers that are in this area. So I'm kind of out by myself. So
do you want to share the name of the person that did those DCC installations for you?
Yeah, Gary Du Bois from Olympia did one of them, just the one that I just recently got back. That actually has been in the works for over a year. The other two I bought from somebody that I met on the internet, and I don't remember his name. But they were already converted when I bought them, and they both have Keep Alive and Sound.
Thank you very much, John. That's fun to see your layout. You've done some nice scratch building.
Well, thank you. I'm like I said, it's not really the first railroad I've ever built, and it's kind of a learning experience. I probably made every possible mistake that you can make, but I think it turned out pretty well. And for me, it's been satisfying, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Very nice.
Hello again. This is another reminder that this virtual layout tour has been brought to you by members of the 4th Division of the Pacific Northwest region of the National Model Railroad Association. And we hope you've enjoyed it. And we want to encourage you to, again, find out about the NMRA online. Both PNR and NMRA have an excellent website where you can get information about joining and participating in this and other activities like our clinics that are held all over the region. So thank you for joining us today, and wish you great modeling.